Today's topic is...
Color theory, psychology, your army, and you. Two.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Waypan. I'm Cal.
I'm Sunny.
What is color psychology?
Color psychology is the study of how colors make people feel or behave.
Isn't that just astrology, but for colors?
You could say that, but there are companies that spend millions of dollars studying this effect.
Well...
It does have real-world effects. For example, did you know that the use of pink in the visitor/opponent's locker room is banned because it actually reduces their performance on the field?
This is a cultural effect. Color psychology is split up into two categories: cultural and biological or universal effects.
In modern society, pink is associated with the feminine, but in the past, it was actually seen as the immature version of red, the color for men, passionate, vibrant, bold. So pink was for boys.
But there are biological responses to colors. For example, red, yellow, and white is commonly associated with fast foods because of its connection to meat, which has a salivating response.
We hope that you can see that color psychology has a real effect on people.
With that super quick introduction to color psychology, let's move on to our first color. Blue
has a strong theme of reliability. Many major communication brands will use blue as their main color.
Brands like Nokia, IBM, and Visa have a connection to reliability and want to be known as reliable brands.
Blue is connected with reliability, passivity, and competence.
It's also connected to being cold or cool. If you're cool during a crisis, you're stable and reliable. If you're cold in a relationship, you're standoffish and closed. All colors have both positive and negative traits. And if you want to learn more, please watch our video, In-Depth Color Psychology.
You'll hear us reference this a lot.
So let's take a look at it in a Warhammer context. Now, if we're talking about blue, we have to talk about the poster boys.
The Ultramarines. Doesn't every single thing that we've mentioned about blue apply to them?
Yes, in fact, often that was the problem with Gilliman. He was too standoffish with some of his other brothers.
Oh, yeah.
But the rigidity and stability of blue can be seen in Craftworld or TOC.
Tell me more about them.
So Eldar have those paths of the warp spider puzzle.
Yep.
Okay, with that, the Oltok are very into that because they don't want any degeneracy. They're very, very focused.
Like zero deviations.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Very blue.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
So let's take away from the idea of color schemes and take a look towards the races within 40k. Let's imagine that you've got this whole race which you want to look stable and passive and like that. What would you color them?
Blue?
And what color are the Tau?
Oh, they're blue-skinned, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and all the heroic traits of the Tau are meant to be more stoic and put together. They're very sort of tranquil and they're very passive in the sense...
In the lore.
Yes, they don't want any like qualms with the other races. In fact, they want to bring them in and stuff like that.
But let's take a look at somebody else who has the opposite views of that. The Orcs.
The Orcs?
Yes, what do you think they think about blue?
I have no idea.
They think that it's a lucky color.
Lucky? Why?
It might be because the Ultramarines wear it, and in lore they believe that the Ultramarines basically have plot armor, so they think it's lucky.
They can never die, so that they're very lucky.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess because it's a bit different as well, because this shows the contextual,
the
cultural aspects of how blue is associated in the lore. But normally luck is associated with colors like gold and green.
Yeah. So as our transition, I want to talk about one last faction which went from red to blue, and that is the Thousand Suns.
Oh, they're the psychic space marines, right?
That's right. So originally, when they were red, they were very passionate, they were very into things, and they were also mutating a lot. However, after a certain ritual, they are very stable. In fact, one could say unmoving for a lot of them.
Oh, okay. So that's why they turned blue?
Yeah, well, there's a bit more to it. Could be because of Araman, could be because of all of the different warbands, but the thing is, what Games Workshop wanted to represent is that change from the very chaotic and passionate nature into that stable one.
Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense.
They still might do just a tiny bit of sorcery, just a tiny bit. I'm not saying a lot, maybe a little.
What were you talking about?
All according to plan.
What plan?
Next, red
has a strong theme of passion. Many brands that want to be associated with the theme of passion will use red in their logos.
Brands such as Coca-Cola, Red Bull, and Marvel will want to be connected with red for the excitement, passion, and action that comes with it.
Red has the most cohesive cross-cultural meanings because it's the color of our blood. It's also the first color we see as a child, as it is the longest wavelength of light. Red is also associated with the action, power, and violence, making it a very intense and highly polarized color.
Just like all colors, it has both positive and negative traits. In this case, we're going to focus on passion. When politely describing people who can't control themselves, we call them passionate.
That's not a good thing.
But you want somebody to be passionate in your relationship because if they're not, they just don't care, obviously.
Yeah, they'll be very apathetic.
In a Warhammer context, you can see that with both the Cornate World Eaters and the Blood Angels. One is too passionate on one side and one is too passionate on the other. Both of them have senses of honor, but it's very, very different.
From a historical perspective, the color red has been used to represent factions that have been blooded or seen action, just like these two.
We see the same when it comes to the Xenos. Take a look at Craftworld Samhai. Actually, all I think I need to do is say their full name. Sunny, can you guess their full name?
No, no idea. What is it?
All right, it's Craftworld Samhai Wild Riders.
Okay, yes. The wildness is also a concept that is associated with the color red because it represents that uncontrolled part of it as well.
Yeah. It's the passion. Passion gone wild.
Oh.
Speaking of passion gone wild, that is why the Farsight enclaves are also red. They're red because they're a separate entity from that of the Tau. And the Tau are calm, peaceful, stable. And what's the opposite of that? Obviously the red.
Yeah, more chaotic, more passionate, as we have said.
Yeah. Much more lifelike, vibrant.
Yeah, more action, more in the front and center, more willing to do things, initiative, things like that.
Yeah. Speaking of, what do you think red means to orcs?
Fast.
Yes, red makes things go fast.
Yeah. And this makes perfect sense because red is often used as the color for urgency, which is why you'll see call to action buttons sport red all the time.
Yeah, like stop signs.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'd be remiss if I forgot to mention one faction which was your favorite faction from the Badab War.
Oh no.
The Red Scorpions.
Oh, Red Scorpion. I thought you were going to say the Firehawks. I hate the Firehawks.
To be fair, you really like the Astral Claws too.
Yeah, but they're not red.
Yeah, I know, but I thought you
yes.
really did like the...
Yeah.
We should probably move on.
Yellow.
Yellow is one of the hardest to see of all of the primary colours. It also has the most positive associations due to its connection to the sun and gold.
Through our research, we also found a new trait for yellow. Feel free to dispute us on this, but because of its brightness, we feel that it's a very dominant colour.
Not just its brightness and its attention-grabbing nature, but also the brands that wish to be associated with it. A lot of you may be too young for this one, but Yellow Pages, McDonald's, and Caterpillar vehicles all dominated their respective industries.
Or used to. Yellow is associated with energy, abrasiveness, and optimism. But another fun fact is that yellow is so hard to see that it can cause newborns to cry.
But just like all of the other colours we talked about, it has both positive and negative traits. And for that dual trait that we're going to talk about right now, we're going to use the term energetic.
Oftentimes, when someone's being super energetic, it can be seen as a bit off-putting and they need to tone it down. But at the same time, being energetic is fantastic because that's a very encouraging trait and it's great for people to be around. If you want to learn more about these traits, check out our video on in-depth color psychology.
So to put into perspective that idea of dominance, we have another domino to look at, which is the Imperial Fists.
The Imperial Fists are a pretty domineering faction as a whole, and they use a lot of yellows as part of their armor color.
They use that to make themselves the beacon, the place where you fortify. But when looking for more traditional colour psychology when it comes to yellow, look no further than the orcs. Though yellow means more splody.
The Bad Moon orcs are also associated with wealth, and Craftwell Iandan was seen as one of the shining stars of the Eldar race.
They may have lost some of their luster, but that doesn't mean that that isn't what they want to be perceived as.
As you can see, all of these factions use the bright factor of yellow to show how attention-grabbing they are.
Well, actually, there is one small thing. When it comes to the Bad Moons, you know why they're connected with yellow?
Yeah?
Because of teeth.
Teeth?
Yes, that's what orcs call teeth.
Ah,
and see,
okay.
the whole idea is that they're yellow,
Yeah.
that off yellow, right? And that's why they're rich, because teeth is their currency.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense.
But before I go into another long aside, let's move on to the next colour, Green.
When it comes to our eyes, green is actually seen as a primary color because we see in red, greens, and blues. It's associated with nature, but also toxification. An extremely variable color, but has a stable cross-cultural association to nature all across the world.
And a minor connection with peacefulness.
Brands that wish to seem eco-friendly, refreshing, or inviting would use green as their main color, like Greenpeace, Sprite, and Holiday Inn.
Ah, a refreshing green piece now to have a lie down at the Holiday Sprite. When it comes to green, it's extremely variable, so its color profile is going to seem variable as well. It's connected with nature, health, and inexperience. We're going to focus on health as the double-edged sword of green. Now, when it comes to health, you can either be sickly or robust, and green represents both. Just taking a look at some of the fighting forces within 40k, we can see how variable green is. For example, Nurgle can be seen as that corrupting, discarded, sickly force.
Where the Necrons can be viewed as a corruption of nature with its bright, almost toxic green. With early computers using green text, a lot of that bright green has been connected with the artificial.
And we can see once again how variable green is when it comes to two Space Marine forces. Take a look at the Salamanders. The Salamanders are connected with positivity and a force of good, whereas the Dark Angels are seen as foreboding and ominous.
Because it's correlated with the mysteries of a dark forest. And also, green is obviously the best color.
Da best?
Because it's the best, like the orcs.
Oh, right, da best. Yes, no, that makes sense. But green is also the best color to see where context matters. For example, if somebody is covered in various vine and fern patterns, they're connected with nature. But if they're in camouflage colors, that's a different story.
It just gives a more serious tone, just like how we made the comparisons between the salamanders versus the dark angels.
You know who else is green as someone you like?
Who is it?
The Mantis Warriors.
Oh yeah, Mantis Warrior, good.
That should be a meme, Sunny. Mantis Warrior, good.
Just remember, changing the shades of green will immensely change their meanings. Moving on to
Purple. Purple is a rare color in nature and very expensive to create, so it was reserved for royalty and then the wealthy. Because of this, it is associated with luxury. In that same vein, it is also associated with mysticism, intrigue, and sensuality.
Because it's a rare color in nature.
Sensuality.
Yes, okay, we get it.
Brands that aspire to prestige or wonder like to be connected to the colour purple, such as Wonka, Canberry, or Ralph Lauren, the purple label.
Purple is associated with being unique, sophisticated, and sensitive.
As well as sensual.
Yes, sensual.
It seems like you're getting a bit sensitive.
Very funny.
Yes, but sensitive is what we're going to use as the dual both positive and negative label.
Yes, when someone is sensitive, it can be seen that they are sensitive to other people's needs. But in the same vein, if they are easily offended on someone else's behalf, even if they didn't say anything, then they're just being a jerk.
Speaking of jerks, let's take a look at the Emperor's Children. Actually, the Emperor's Children players are pretty cool based off our design versus lore. They're one of the most chill groups there is, next to the Iron Warriors. You wouldn't think...
Are you sure they're chill? They're very perfectionist.
No, but I'm serious. Like, the actual players of them and the Iron Warriors were both very chill in our videos.
Oh, okay, yeah. Design versus lore was our answer to doing these videos over and over. This series is where we break down all the different factions of Space Marines and then we see if their lore matches their design.
Well, actually, we do take a look at some other things, but currently we're focusing on the first founding legions.
Yes.
But purple is kind of an unusual colour in that it's not often used in war games because purple is associated with that idea of luxury and royalty. So if you've got purple, it doesn't really cohesively match with that of the idea of a war game faction.
Yeah, it's quite a vibrant color as well, so it's difficult to bring that into a grim dark theme, which is why a lot of the sort of more evil factions sport this color because it's pretentious.
And also that might be why the orcs think that you're invisible when you're in it, because nobody ever uses purple as a part of their theme.
Coming back to Cal's favorite word of the day, sensuality. The Dark Elves and Slanesh forces love to sport this color for that same reason.
Woman, how dare you? It's sensuality.
Yes, okay. Shall we move on?
Sensuality.
Next color,
Orange. You cannot have a go at me after you did that.
Orange. Orange merges the associations of its parent colors, red and yellow. It's very warm and vibrant and thus the color of energy and attention.
Brands that aspire to that energetic, fun and warm feeling are Nickelodeon, Fanta and Penguin Books.
Orange is associated with being vibrant, spontaneous and youthful.
In other words, attention grabbing. Attention grabbing can be really good. For example, safety items are often orange or yellow. Those attention-grabbing colours. But when you're in an orange piece of clothing and somebody calls it loud, they're not exactly complimenting you.
It's very distracting and you can seem pretentious.
But there is another thing that orange is connected with. At least that's what we see in war games. It is connected with the new. The Tau Step, when they first came out, what colour were they? Orange. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance, what colour are they? And when were they used as the poster boys for the Votan? Same thing with the Gene Stealer cult.
I would argue that along that same vein of being new, I would say that these guys are fresh on the scene, packing the most amount of energy with a fiery enthusiasm, which is why they're orange.
Also, the other reason that they're orange is simple. They get noticed.
Oh, yeah, that too. On a side note, this isn't Warhammer related, but you also notice that the rebel forces from Star Wars also happen to be orange?
Ironically, more than green, it shows that they're inexperienced.
Oh, yeah, which is funny, isn't it?
But before we go off into another tangent, next, white.
White, along with black and greys, are considered shades, not colors. This is because white is formed through the combination of all wavelengths of light in the visible spectrum, or simply put, it reflects all colors equally. Because it's pure light, it is associated with purity, innocence, cleanliness, and new beginnings, and has religious significances across the world.
But honestly, it's fine, guys, if somebody calls it a colour. Don't get up in arms about it, okay, guys? White is connected with perfectionism, purity, and hope. Brands that aspire to cleanliness and purity to establish their brand would be Apple, Cartier, and Chanel. However, white and black, especially more than any other colour, when it comes to brand logos, they might just be trying for clarity.
A double-edged trait of white would be purity. It can be seen as a really admirable trait, but at the same time, you can seem like you're very naive.
I thought you were going to go a lot darker with that one.
How do you mean?
Insert the Mr. Incredible meme. Those who know, those who don't. There's another trait of white that I think I should mention right now, which is innocent, which is what you are.
Oh, okay. Oh well, let's move on to the factions, shall we?
Like we mentioned before with the brands, a lot of the time when you choose white, you're choosing white for a particular reason more than the colour psychology behind it. For example, when it came to the original World Eaters, why do you choose white and blue? Now, white and blue does have a connection in colour psychology. It means stable and pure. But also white and blue contrast very well with gore and viscera, especially blood.
Yes, which we know that the World Eaters were quite famous for. This also comes back to the trait of white being easily stained, which is why they probably chose white as well.
But then you can take a look at factions like the White Scars, and for those people who are like, oh, he knows nothing about the law, well, the White Scars were actually quite distant from their other brothers, both literally, figuratively, and culturally. But hey, we know nothing about the law. You guys in the comments are the experts.
Well, to put it simply, the reason why they seem cold and distant is because of the correlation to snow.
Or rather, that's the connection to the colour psychology of white. Snow, it's cold and distant. Also, we can see those more traits of purity when it comes to the Tau Villora. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that one.
Viola.
I'm sorry if she mispronounced that one as well.
Okay.
But more seriously, you can see how they're meant to represent that more new idea, the new beginning idea with the Tau, and that idea of naivete. However, I fear we're going a bit long. So, next... Black. Black is the direct opposite of white in that it absorbs all colours and reflects none. Thus, it represents absolutes.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
Okay, Obi-Wan, can we get on with it? And because of it representing the end, or absolutes, it's used in formal wear, particularly funerals.
Brands that aspire to be powerful, elegant, and serious are Prada, Gucci, and WWF.
She doesn't mean the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, but the one with pandas.
Yeah, Wildlife Foundation. Black is associated with being powerful, intimidating, and discreet.
It's also used in fashion a lot because of shape language, which is a part of color theory.
Because of how much shadows black produce, it's used to contour a figure, which is why it creates a really elegant look.
Black's trait, which is both positive and negative, is power. Power can be used for good, but it can also be used for ill. Power can be a corrupting force, but it can also be a force that gives agency. A great example of this would be the Black Legion.
A force obviously corrupted by power and evil.
But going back to the practical application of this colour, often this colour is used for stealthy factions. Even though I'm not quite sure how you can make a 2-ton man in power armor be stealthy. But yet, apparently the Raven Guard are? I don't know.
Oh, well. Maybe it's because they fly around in the night. But there are also various assassins throughout 40k which wear skin-tight black suits.
And the Dark Eldar, if not extremely dark, actually use black a lot.
Which makes a lot of sense for their theme.
You mean that they're evil?
Also because they're dark Eldar.
We're meant to call them Drukhari now.
Drukhari.
No, not Drew Carey.
Alright, next.
Grey.
Grey is the in-between of black and white. It's not an absolute and rejects both black and white, therefore seen as a neutral and unchanging color. But when colors are added into greys to turn them warm or cool, their meanings will change and dull the meanings of the colors that are added to them.
It's not often that you have a pure grey, and when you don't have one of those pure greys, when you either add grey to a colour or colour is added to a grey, what Sunny is saying is the meaning for both is reduced.
Brands that aspire to be professional, reliable, and all-encompassing would be Nintendo, Wii, Swarovski, and Wikipedia.
As you may have noticed, the truly grey brands, when it comes to grey brands, are rather slim pickings. One of the reasons for this is one of grey's negative traits, which is a lack of enthusiasm. And nobody really wants to be associated with that.
Brands that use grey are looking to be minimalist. That's why some of the associations of grey are being impartial, pragmatic, and ambiguous. Impartiality will be our both negative and positive trait for grey, because when you're impartial, you can be seen as very reliable, but in certain situations, it can also make you seem really uncaring.
And it will depend on who the viewer is on whether you're being uncaring or fair. When it comes to that uncaring feeling, let's take a look at a very famous Space Marine chapter, the Carcharodons.
Oh no, not the Carcharodons.
Or the Space Sharks.
You sure it's not the Street Sharks?
Should I remind you of the Badab War?
Oh no, please, no. I'll go back to my hole now.
But just like with the brands, there's not a lot of grey factions when it comes to Warhammer. Though there are some factions that you could put inside there. Certainly, the pre-heresy Space Wolves were grey, but I don't think that they have a strong connection with that grey colour.
How about the Lunar Wolves?
And this is where we come to the problem with grey. Grey is obviously a gradient. Now, when it comes to the Lunar Wolves, you could consider them a pale grey, but many people will paint them closer to just a white. When grey goes in one direction or the other, it takes on the psychological traits of its parent colour, being white or black. So the closer you are to white, the closer it will have white traits. The closer you are to black, the closer it will have black traits.
One of the reasons you won't see a lot of grey factions is because of an out-of-game reason, which is that it's not a very exciting colour, which is not going to excite a lot of people to buy models.
I guess we're going to move on to our final colour. Brown. Just like black, white and grey, there is no individual wavelength of light that is associated with brown. Instead, brown is a composite or compound colour. This means that it's made up of a combination of colours. Though some people may say that it's just dark orange, that's not true. Take any colour on the traditional colour wheel and mix it with its opposite, and what will you get? Brown.
There are many ways of getting a brown, like how you can desaturate an orange to get a brown, but that won't get you every shade of brown.
This is what makes brown difficult to use because it's made up of multiple colours. And just like grey, when you start adding a certain colour to it, at a certain point it becomes that colour. But where is that point? You're not quite sure. When does a khaki become a green or a tan?
When does a raw umber become a red?
And to confuse things even further, raw umber will change its colour depending on the region it's harvested from.
You may have guessed from everything that we have just said, brown is a very variable color when it comes to color psychology. Brown's main connections are with the earth, what is beneath us, the dirt and soil, and thus its connections are with being reliable, safe, and secure.
But due to its variability, instead of talking about an individual, both positive and negative trait, we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about how earth can be seen as dull, disgusting, and dirty.
There is a dual trait to brown, and that is with humility. People can see you as humble or common and pedestrian.
As you can tell by this very long intro into the traits surrounding brown, obviously brown is extremely variable. So giving an arming example wouldn't exactly be the best, because often the times that people will be using brown, they'll be using it as a part of the equipment. For example, wood, leather, or fur.
Brown is also considered as a neutral color and can be used the same ways that you would use blacks, whites, and grays. It would have more practical uses, as Cal mentioned earlier, and it would be used as a color to either use as camouflage or to use as a welcoming and inviting tone. Oftentimes you will use brown as visual breakers, same way you would use it with black or white, but it's less harsh, it's more warm, and it's just overall a nicer look to it, like with your leather satchels, belts, and such.
So with this one, we wanted to give you a short introduction to the other topics that we cover, for example, color harmonies and in-depth color psychology.
As well as color psychology practical application. It's super dry, but it's also very helpful. So just check out our playlist, Understanding Color.
And if this is your first time watching, we want to say welcome to Waypan.
And as always,
keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye. You know, there's only one problem if they're new to Waypan and they go back and watch in-depth color psychology, Sunny.
Oh yeah, what's that?
The audio.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that.
Yeah. we have tried to improve a lot, guys. Please notice that we've tried.
Yes, I hope this is much better for your ears. And if this video gets popular enough and you'd like us to cover the tertiary colors and metallic colors, then please request us for What Your Army's Colors Say About You 3.
And we might do it. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Only if it gets 100,000 views. Thanks for watching. We hope you liked it.
And have a good one.